Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figure Music School podcast. We are back this week with another episode in our Culture Club series. And just kind of like all my favorite shows, there's always a previously on. Just to remind everyone, if you're just tuning in for the first time, we are doing a 7-part series on school culture. This is a topic that is often asked about and that many school owners feel confused about. And back in April, or at the very beginning of April, Nate delivered this awesome presentation for one of the sessions in our Founders Forum live event in Brooklyn, New York. And it was so good, I said, I think you need to break this down, expand on it, and let's do a whole thing on this, because we constantly get this question: how do I build culture? Just last week, 7 days ago, our episode was on clear school purpose. Mm-hmm. And I just want to remind people and give people a working definition of what clear school purpose is, so that they have that context coming to this episode, because what you're going to talk about today, Nate, is very closely connected to clear school purpose. And I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you kind of introduce that, but I just want to give that working definition.
Yeah.
Last week, we defined clear school purpose as your school's elevator pitch. It's the product you deliver, obviously the lessons or the camps, how you deliver it, and what sets you apart as a school, what makes you distinct from the school down the street or the School of Rock corporate franchise that's a block or two over, which actually was true for Brooklyn Music Factory for a while. As opposed to the core values of the school, which are inward looking, the clear school purpose is outward looking. It's externally faced. It helps families to know if your school is the right fit for them. And it's a powerful decision-making guideline for the team. If your team is unclear as to what they should be doing in any given situation, purpose is what they look to. It's their North Star. It's their guidepost. And then just as kind of a final thought, in the last episode, Nate emphasized that clear school purpose is a key pillar of culture because it gives long-term direction. It enables macro-level decision-making, and it ensures that you're saying the right things to the right people at the right time, and that, ensures focus and profitability. So without a clear school purpose, you risk saying yes to everything and becoming bland and forgettable. Nate.
Nobody wants to be bland and forgettable. Let's start there.
100%. So Nate, here's my question for you. What are we talking today that's so important and is related to clear school purpose?
We are talking about how to actually implement this and how it shows up in your school. So we're talking about where purpose gets symbolized in your school. What are the symbols of your purpose? We're talking about the rituals that happen in your school. And then we're talking about stories, i.e. stories you can tell that really are exemplary of your purpose. Stories about students, stories about families, stories about faculty, stories about longtime staff members that are all exemplary of your purpose. So symbols, rituals, and stories.
So Nate, we're using the word symbols and rituals and stories and that sort of thing. Let's just have like a very, very brief, concrete definition of what you mean by that. And then I might even have a follow-up question for you after that.
Yeah, totally. Let's start with the definition of rituals. So I actually literally just pulled up a def for us just to make it real easy, sort of like the easy approach, a Webster's definition of rituals. Let me read you a little bit of it, and then let me give you just a couple of examples they give, and then we can dig into some real, how this applies to our music school and culture. But rituals are patterned actions, performed according to, it says, a specific order. Doesn't have to be that, but you and I love systems. So rituals are patterned actions performed according to a specific order, often with symbolic meaning and social significance. That's the really important part when we're talking about developing culture. They give a few examples of, religious rituals, rites of passage, things like that. We don't really need to go into those, though.
Yeah, because we can do our own.
We can totally. But daily rituals, I love these examples. Like, for example, a morning ritual, specific actions performed each morning, such as waking up, getting ready, blah, 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 enjoying your coffee. I love this one, mealtime rituals, because I think this will resonate for lots of us and our listeners. Practices surrounding eating, such as family dinners or cooking specific recipes or hosting a weekly dinner with friends. So, yeah, when we talk about rituals, let's frame it that way. When we're thinking about like, what are the rituals that can happen within our school that are very intentional around our purpose and our
Okay.
values?
How does this relate to culture, or why is this important? Why do you need symbols in the school? Why do you need rituals in the school?
There's dozens of books on the business shelf around culture, right? But the reality is that it feels far more abstract than things like building a working procedure or creating your marketing dashboard or learning how to use paid digital, all of which feels very sort of technical, right? Like we can develop these tools, and they sort of feel straightforward to us. Like, oh, I need to improve my landing page conversion rate. Let me sign up for this digital marketer course on how to get her done. But it's very different when you say, I need to develop a deep understanding of the culture of our music schools so families feel like they identify with your community and want to stay there for 7 to 10 years. That feels very sort of slippery. It's like a wet bar of soap. You're not exactly sure how to keep a hold of it and exactly what to do. So when we start identifying clear symbols, Daniel, when we start identifying clear rituals, when we start identifying very clear stories that we can tell over and over to people that are interested in understanding our culture, that makes it more concrete. Now we can say, oh, here's a symbol that clearly demonstrates the culture of the company that I'm trying to build. So it's just making it very specific. And that is always helpful when you're building your craft of business, because business is a craft. That's the important piece. It's not this elusive, magical thing, right? And culture can feel elusive. So that's why I like to
Okay.
be really specific.
I'm curious if you can share with us some of those symbols and rituals from BMF that exemplify what you were talking about.
Yep, totally. Let me start with the easy ones, symbols, because your
Okay.
school absolutely has these. I'm saying that to all my listeners. There are symbols of your school's culture that exist right now. At Brooklyn Music Factory, being a game-based songwriting program for kids, let me give you 3 examples of symbols that we use every season, as well as at every camp. Number 1, if you were to walk into our community room, you would see on the wall an entire wall covered in original song lyrics. And those are there's like about, I don't know, 50 songs from last season. And they're all of the same theme, you know, like magic or friendship or whatever our theme was. And they cover the wall, and they also show the level of the songwriting party. So it'll be like beginner level 3, and it's the lyrics by, you know, Julia, and it's her whole song with the verse and the chorus. And that's printed out, and it's a lyric sheet, and it's just up there like it's a photo wall, but it's a lyric wall, right? And why is that symbol so important? Because it just reinforces to any parent that what we do is celebrate kids' creativity, and we're an original songwriting party. And anytime a parent's like, wait, so what does this mean? I can just point to the wall and it can be like, well, let's take a look at this common chord progression that's used over these lyrics that were written by one of our students that were then played by a band of 6 kids, blah, 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 blah. And it's a very real, tangible symbol. We do the exact same type of symbol for camp songs. We create a camp song certificate. So at the end of each day songwriting camp, the kids walk out of there with a songwriting certificate. At the end of each week-long songwriting camp, they walk out of the same thing. And that songwriting certificate highlights a couple things, 3 different, actually, details. And the details matter. Number 1, it has all the names of the kids in their band. And why is that so important? Because build community is a huge part of our purpose. And so we define building community in the micro sense around teaching kids how to collaborate within a group. So that's the first part where we really emphasize community, is in that group context. So we put the band in the camp certificate, song certificate. We put that band, the name on there. We also put the band name on it. So it's like, the Rolling Thunders is the title of the song certificate. And why does that matter? Because everybody knows that when you name something, then you feel a part of it. So the Rolling Thunders all of a sudden is one of those pieces that make that student feel a part of something, which is a really important step in developing a sense of community. And then finally, we have the lyrics. So the lyrics of the song are on that song certificate. So that's it. You got the bands, you got the musician names on there, you have the band name on there, and then you have the lyrics. And that's a camp song certificate. So that's a second example of a symbol that's really intentional for us. And then the third example of a symbol is we are a game-based program. We use big music games. We use the app, bigmusicgames.com. You can go check it out. It's available for everyone to play around the world. But we also hand out these, what we call BMG badges, right? They're just stickers. So if you've passed Rhythm Song Scribe level 3, we get out our little bin that has, hundreds of stickers, all the different levels for all the different games, and we give that sticker to a student, and the student can stick it anywhere they like. Sometimes they'll stick it on their songwriting binder, that kind of thing, right? So those are 3 simple examples of symbols that are very intentional, that reinforce our purpose.
Yeah, Nate. I was just thinking about some of the things you said there, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, because some of like, for instance, the songs on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I'm going to use a word here that sounds bad, but hear me all the way out.
Mm-hmm.
That is somewhat mundane. I think there's probably schools out there that say, oh, we don't have culture, that maybe do something like that. Maybe they do have student accomplishments pinned up somewhere. They have a progress tracker or something like that, but it doesn't hit for them as culture. And maybe it doesn't function as culture practically in the results that they're getting. Do you think that's possible? Do you see what I'm getting at here?
Yes. And here's what I'm going to say. You absolutely have rituals in your music school. But what might be missing, to your point, Daniel, is that there's still a gap in your understanding between developing a clear purpose statement as a music school, and then being able to point to, for example, that leaderboard. Like we work with some awesome schools, Daniel, that have exactly this. We have a member in the forum that has a really inspiring version of this, where these students literally move from level to level on a public wall. And so everybody in the community can see how these students are graduating from level to level. And it can make perfect sense for her culture, because she's trying to create this sort of like communal motivating wall. And like, she just has to figure out, right? She has to figure out how to actually put that in a purpose statement that then links the two clearly. Yeah.
Oh, you just said something here that really even makes it hit for me a little bit deeper than it was already. And it's this, is that you putting motivational posters up on the wall isn't necessarily culture. You like making a progress tracker for student isn't necessarily culture. It only is received or has an effect like culture when it is directly aligned with both the clear school purpose and the core values.
Yes.
They need to emanate from that. Culture isn't just like, oh, here's our branding colors, or, oh, here's a good idea. And it goes back to something I said at the very beginning of the episode. It isn't just random choices being made. It needs to come from a very, very deep place of intention, to use the other word you used.
Yeah, which is precisely why you said, I hope our listeners went back to the last episode and took a crack at the homework.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, dude, there's so many times where we pick up like, a business book, and they will tell us, you and I were talking about this the other day. They'll be like, you must put the book down now and do the homework.
Yeah. Because it's not about what you're saying yes to. It's the 1,000 things you're saying no to. And you could hear stuff that BMF does Or you could be on a Facebook group for music school owners and see, oh, wow, that owner is doing something really cool and it's been really good for their school. Let me adopt that.
Yes.
And it's not going to have the same effect because
Yeah.
it
Right.
is disembodied from the culture in which it was created. And it works so well for that school because it was very purposeful. That really hit for me. I'm getting chills.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember Jessica, who was a guest at the forum? She said this thing when she did a presentation on hiring and the entire process, but she made an offhanded comment around clear values and purpose.
Mm.
And she said, what's incredibly powerful is when these parents start parroting your purpose, when they're describing your school to another parent. It's like the playground purpose. What would they say your school is and does? And when we start hearing at BMF, which we absolutely do at this stage of spending time and effort on it over the last 15 years, when you start hearing parents be like, yeah, it's a really welcoming community where students get supported, really at every stage. It's like my child was super shy when she first started in, mini keys at age 5. And now she's writing an original song and has a full band backing her at age 9, singing lead vocals and playing piano. It's just incredible what they're able to get my child to do. And you're like, this is incredible, because basically she's actually, this parent is saying a part of our purpose and a community to support every step of the way. And she's also citing our very clear how, which is songwriting. She's writing and performing original songs with the full band. So it's like baked into her comment is our purpose statement. And this is it's a really important point that you bring up, Daniel, which is like, listeners, you have some rituals in your school right now. B, if they don't feel like they're landing, then we need to connect them to the initial work of trying to define that purpose statement, right?
This episode is sponsored by BigMusicGames.com. As our listeners know, Brooklyn Music Factory is all about a fun, fluency-first approach to music lessons. And at the foundation of our teaching methods are rhythm, melody, harmony, and songwriting games that challenge students as young as 4 years old to train their ears and flex that musical mind. Because when you set an intention of gamifying every single lesson, you're going to find improved attendance, increased play at home, and higher student retention. So we've set up a website just for our listeners so you can start playing today. Go to bigmusicgames.com/7FMS and create your free account. Again, that's bigmusicgames.com/7FMS. And if you join today, I'm going to send you a personal invite to join our weekly teacher training call with me and Greggy Bizzle, our chief game designer. Go ahead and put play back into practice with Big Music Games.
Nate, do you ever think it's a good idea for a school owner to purposefully start a ritual or purposefully have a symbol in the school?
Yeah. So the rituals examples will feel, again, like, for our listeners, they might be like, I don't know if I could do that. That doesn't seem on point with us. That's not the point of me listing these rituals. So you got to just keep that open mind of like, what is my version of a ritual with my teachers, with my students, with my families, with my staff? Okay, so here's 3 examples. First of all, you've heard me talk about this a bunch. Daniel and I have talked about this. When you walk into Brooklyn Music Factory, you don't walk into a waiting room, you walk into a community room. And in that community room, you should be hearing either like a drum circle jam, you should be hearing a speed song being written on the main stage. Again, it's really casual. There's nothing stage and performative about it. It's just everybody's welcome up. Or there'll be like a live game being played on the stage. But there's something happening that's engaging the students in that community room. Is it every minute of every hour in the afternoon? No, it isn't. But I would say every like 15 to 20 minutes, there's definitely some kind of jam happening as students are coming and going from their lessons. And so that is a very intentional ritual to get back. I'm actually going to answer your question right now, Daniel. We train to that position. So when a community room teacher or a desk person is coming in, they know that the definition of success in that role is to find themselves sitting behind the desk for only X percentage of the afternoon. The rest of the time, they're hanging out with the kids, they're playing with the kids. It's very binary. Like, how much time did you spend sitting behind the desk? Was it more than like 50% of your 3-hour shift? Then that's failure. You need to be up there playing, right? Hanging out. You don't have to be even making anything of, quote, quality music. It doesn't matter to us. It just matters that 4-year-old is banging on a drum with you, right?
Someone needs to be creating.
Yeah, creating and that communal piece, Daniel, is really huge.
Yes.
So that's an example of a ritual for us. And you totally could do a version of that in your waiting room, in your music school. It doesn't have to be jamming, obviously, but it could be let someone
be aligned.
Yeah, it just has to be aligned with your purpose. Let's go back to that leadership wall, or the progress wall from one of our forum members. It could be that someone at the desk just comes around and sits next to every student every hour and asks how they're progressing. Show us what you're working on this week. And they open up the book and they talk about what they're working on. That would be an amazing ritual to build in, right? That would be aligned with this idea of regular progress and making it like a public event or something. I'm riffing, but
and I'm even thinking about an example from my studio, which was that every student knew exactly what happened when they came in to my group lesson environment each week. The same thing happened, and I got these ideas from the First Days of School, a book that public school teachers often have to read when they're in university training to become a teacher. Just the importance of basically an opening procedure. At the Piano Express location in Northern Virginia, there is a song that is sung every week by the children at the beginning of the class for the level that they're in, and the song never changes for the whole level. And so when a child goes up to the next level, they're very excited to know what the new song is going to be. And what the song does is demonstrates the concepts that are going to be taught and learned in that level. And they kind of get it all in one thing. It's not something we've talked a lot about when we've been promoting grouplessons.com, but that is definitely a culture piece for those kids. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example of a ritual right there. Because also, to getting back to the intentionality of that ritual, like Piano Express is a very we've talked about this a couple eps ago, but it's a rich, deep, nerdy curriculum. Like Greg is a nerdy guy. It's amazing.
Said that.
So the song is directly like baked into that song are key musical concepts that you intend to teach in the next level. That's a very nerdy ritual and an awesome one.
Yeah.
Because it feels very Piano Express to me. Okay. Let me give a couple other examples of rituals. So at our all-staff meeting, we will write speed songs. For a songwriting program, then it doesn't matter what your musical background is. If you're at BMF, you are absolutely composing and writing songs every week of your life there. And so let's see, what are we doing this? Oh, yeah. So we are in the middle of our Musician's Journey report, writing, and re-enrollment launches just a week from the recording of this. And so at our all-staff meeting next Friday, we record re-enrollment songs, one of which I played for us at the Founders Forum not too long ago.
Yeah.
And those songs then go out into the email campaign to parents. So it's our faculty having written a re-enrollment, like Re-Enroll to Rock and Roll was the one that I shared that we speed wrote. But we're going to do another round of writing those. Then we'll quickly put some bumpers on there. We'll throw them on YouTube and put them in an email campaign, and they go to all the parents reminding them to re-enroll.
And I'll just say, when you showed that at the Forum Live event in Brooklyn, I think I saw kind of the dawning realization in the people who were in this year's class of Forum members Um, and even I thought, wow, songwriting curriculum. Why wouldn't you have your staff write songs as a culture piece? But then also, and I just want to say this, the song was, even though it was a speed song and supposed to be written in 10 minutes or less, it was actually very good. The artistry by the four members in the band were awesome. One of the members of the band is actually the former video editor for this podcast. He edited about the first 100 episodes of
All
this
right,
podcast.
Greggy Bizzle
Yeah,
did it. I
yeah.
remember.
And I was just watching him jam out and be like, man, that's so cool. And then the song was actually good,
Yeah,
like,
totally.
and that just speaks to kind of what we had talked about, how culture is knowing who to invite onto the bus.
Right, I love that.
And
yeah.
all four of those people clearly needed to be teaching in a songwriting program, because obviously the creativity was there, the performance confidence was there, which I know they're passing off to their students.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome, Nate. What's that final example?
Yeah, the final example is that we have an intentions channel in Slack, and all of our listeners know, after having listened to a lot of episodes with me, they know how important setting an intention is. And this is something that we do as a community, and we do it every single all staff meeting. We open up this public intentions channel. We'll read an intention that we set individually. As a teacher, for example, it might be, I intend to support one other teacher in this way over the next season. And then we will ask one another if we have lived up to that intention in the last month, and what's an example, or if we haven't, what kind of new intention do we want to set? And the reason why this is so valuable to our culture, Daniel, is because check your ego at the door is one of our core values. And if you're creating a community that supports the growth of our musicians at every step of the way, you have to create a community of teachers that are supporting one another at every step of the way. And the way to be really supportive, or one of the key stages of building a supportive community, is beginning to open the channels and be more transparent. Just open communication, being able to share your wins, but also being able to share your challenges, and being ready and willing to ask for help. And so this may just sound like, well, Nate, that's just like a good team building strategy, right? But actually, no, it's very closely linked to our purpose, and it's very closely linked to our core values. Two of the most important being, not most important, but two values: check your ego at the door and be the best version of yourself. Right. So we that's an example of a ritual that's a little more nerdy and a little more detailed. But I promise there's a version that our listeners can use that would align with a core value for them and their purpose statement.
Yeah.
That could be around that. So 3 rituals examples.
So Nate, before we wrap here, I know we'd also talked about stories as well. I think that is probably not as mystifying to people who are listening. Maybe give an example of a story that, again, would be something that you say at Brooklyn Music Factory that directly contributes to culture.
Yep. And I sort of hinted at a version of a story before when I talked about that mom talking about her shy child, right? Basically, all a story is you want to take a real example of a student at your school, and even better, a family at your school that has benefited from your purpose, and be able to share.
That's the key. Yes.
Yeah. Benefited from your purpose and every stage of their growth in their journey at your school. So I'll give a quick story about a student of mine, and then that'll certainly spark ideas for our listeners. So I have a 14-year-old student. On the surface, he's one of these classic students where people will say, like, well, he's so talented. I wish my kid was talented like this student. He's 14. He's shredding. He developed perfect pitch. He just got into LaGuardia, which is the arts high school, one of the preeminent arts high schools. It is the preeminent arts high school in New York City, but one of the ones in the nation. He's so excited, incredible artists come out of this high school. And so people would just be like, well, he just was always like that. But the reality is that this student started as a mini key when he was 4 years old. So 10 years ago, he began, and he didn't have perfect pitch when he was, a micronaut. This is something that's developed. He wasn't shredding as a 4-year-old. He couldn't even find middle C as a 4-year-old, right? So what you want to do is have that story of like, well, let me tell you about this student that you just heard, on an advanced band gig. And let me tell you about his journey at Brooklyn Music Factory, from the moment he walked in the door as a mini key all the way through to the moment that he was accepted at this arts high school and is super energized to go. And more important to the story is you want to get the perspective from the parent. And you want to be able to say, here's what the mom said to me. And this is a real quote. She literally said this to me in the last year or something. She's like, I've become such a convert to the Brooklyn Music Factory method, watching my son grow over the last 10 years. And there were times where I wondered, is this really the way to do it? Should I pull him out of this songwriting school and put him in a traditional lesson? Right? And she's like, I'm so glad I didn't make those choices. So that's an example. You want to kind of create this story for yourself that you can share, that gives a family's real journey in your program. And it doesn't have to be 10 years. Don't get thrown by that. It can be 3 years.
100%. And I think this is a great place at which to wrap, because the thing that I want to remind folks, and Nate said it once or twice at least, don't get caught up on the individual rituals or stories or symbols here. And don't think that doing something cool is culture. The key thing to remember coming out of this episode is that it has to be connected to the clear school purpose. We're not just telling a great story about how a kid got better. We're using the story, we're using the testimonial, if you will, the case study, to further reinforce to both clients and staff, this is what we stand for. This is a good example. And so it even goes into choosing the stories we tell about a student, or choosing the stories we tell about a staff member to other staff members when we're maybe demonstrating in the future. Be like, oh, this is one of the best teachers we ever had, and here's why. We're not just picking random things. We're not just picking, because all the kids loved her or all the kids loved him. No, we're always going to connect to the clear school purpose, so that we are always being what I have referred to in past episodes as the CRO, the Chief Reminding Officer. We are always reminding and we're always communicating with a clear purpose, which is interesting because that is one of the things that we're going to be talking about in a future episode, Nate. So a little teaser there for what's upcoming.
Look at you.
Yeah. But Nate, thanks so much for unpacking that and giving all those examples. And to those who are listening or watching on YouTube, we'll see you in the next one.